up was originally a Crossroads, which is a general store owned by a man named Henry Peck. The Crossroads was thus known as Hen Peck until the late 1800s when it grew, and the community decided that Hen Peck was a terrible name, and they became the village of Oblong. The population being under 1,500, the dominance of agriculture, and the lack of proximity to any larger towns or cities continues to qualify Oblong as a village. We have a four-way stop in the center of town that in recent years has been jazzed up with a flashing red light. There's a full-service gas station. Options for dining out include pizza and more or the Highway Cafe. There's the pool hall and 2 bars which are directly across the street from one another. If you get in a fight at Floyd's, you just drag yourself over to the tap and they'll serve you no problem. We even have our very own IGA grocery store. Although they are notoriously sold out of bread on Sundays, and dairy products must be carefully inspected for signs of potential food poisoning, the Oblong IGA is much more convenient than driving the 20 miles needed to reach the next closest grocery store. If you visit the IGA on a weekday evening, you will meet Jim, the smiling, gentle giant who will insist on carrying your groceries to your car for you. As a teenager, I frequently complained about the lack of activities available. Common entertainment among my band of misfits included country cruising, painting graffiti on abandoned bridges, and burning things. There wasn't much excitement. We could always count on my friend's mother to panic at the drop of a hat and paste the house in warning signs for any number of reasons. And there was the time that my dad started a brush fire while a no burning order was in place. But I couldn't understand or appreciate the pace of a small town. I made good grades in school and I played the clarinet in the marching band, but most of all, I looked forward to the day I could leave and never look back. I survived 6 years of college in Illinois before moving to Nashville, Tennessee, thinking the city would help me find myself. Well, I have no doubt that it has much to offer. I didn't find it during my residence there. Instead, I spent most of my time alone drinking too much and bemoaning the fact that meeting people was hard. Meeting people was hard, but the effort I exerted to make it my home was minimal. I was uninspired, depressed, and during this time I killed many a houseplant. I had only visited Southwest Virginia one time before I decided to accept a job offer and relocate here.
Don't sound so miserable.
I certainly had preconceived notions and judgments about what I would find, but once again, I thought that a new place would cure me of my In the very least, the prospect for change seemed like a good one. I decided I would approach Virginia differently than I had Tennessee and attempt to experience what it had to offer. My first outing took me to the Dinosaur Kingdom, a fantastically strange spot at Natural Bridge that has statues depicting battles between dinosaurs and Union Army soldiers. I walked the now dry bed of Mountain Lake in Giles County where parts of Dirty Dancing were filmed, but Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey could no longer practice their famous lip scene here. The docks and benches that once looked out over the sparkling water now just offer the eerie view of overgrown weeds in a giant earthen bowl. I visited the remnants of the Old Lick Cemetery on Orange Avenue, which contained some of the oldest headstones I've ever seen, and I learned that many of the original graves had been dug up and relocated in the early 60s to make way for I-581. I took my first ride on a motorcycle, and I found out that I loved it. I discovered that there was an organized sport that could hold my attention and that it was roller derby. I adopted a stray cat, and I named that cat Loki after the Norse god of mischief. It turned out that she wanted to be a writer and loved posing for portraits, and I nurtured both of these interests. I experienced all that the Salem Fair has to offer. I went to Smith Mountain Lake and I fed popcorn to the carp at Bridgewater Plaza. Possibly one of the most horrifying encounters I have ever experienced. I had no idea that carp even liked popcorn, let alone desired it enough to pile up on top of one another, raise their fish mouths high to the air, and pray that another kernel of popcorn goodness would land within reach. I explored the Greenway and the various parks throughout the Roanoke Valley. I even joined a friend for a night of square dancing. I was taught how to swing, promenade, and circle family left and right. I learned that the skills of the collar are particularly important when you don't know the difference between the steps. I watched a 96-year-old man flat-foot, and it blew my mind. Throughout these adventures, I learned about myself, what I like and what I don't like. I began enjoying things that weren't specific to Virginia, the location I now called home. My childhood passion for reading was renewed. My bare bookshelf slowly filled up, and I became a regular patron of the library. I wrote a little bit, I cooked a little bit, I experienced feeling content. I once again tried my hand at raising plants, this time attempting to will them to live with my kind words in neither too much nor too little water. They lasted a little longer each time I tried, but my thumb remains black rather than green. This October, I participated in the festivities of Halloween for the first time in nearly 2 decades. I carved pumpkins with my boyfriend, turned myself into Pippi Longstockings, and passed out candy to neighborhood kids. And this year I spent Thanksgiving with friends rather than alone. At Christmas, I will travel back to Oblong. After I moved away, an anonymous resident established the Mug Tree near a random rural field north of town, and I love visiting it, a little spot of creativity amidst the barren landscape. But not much else has changed there. Headlines on the website that is run by the village currently include new playground equipment installed and we are missing a box of our letters for the sign east of town by the park entrance. If you borrowed them from Harmon's drugstore, please return them. Oblong hasn't changed much, but I have, and today I can appreciate my roots and where I've come from. We must find happiness by knowing ourselves, for wherever we go, there we are.